Have you ever woken up and thought, whose life am I even living? Somewhere along the way, you settled. The job, the relationship, the plans you told yourself was temporary, but now it's your reality. The truth? You don't need a grand reset or anyone's permission to take back control. In this video, we will break down how small rebellions like saying no and rejecting society's tired script can help you rewrite your story, your way. Forget perfection, forget timelines, and forget living for someone else's approval. This is about you reclaiming your life, one choice at a time. Let's get started. Let's talk about settling, and I am not going to sugarcoat it. You're stuck in a life that doesn't feel like yours, and it's pissing you off, isn't it? It starts innocently enough. You tell yourself, this is fine for now. The job that pays the bills but sucks the soul out of you. The relationship that's okay but not amazing, not terrible, just, there, the plans you didn't even want to make. And then before you know it, just for now, becomes your whole fucking life. Let me hit you with some real me. Fine is a bullshit word. It's where dreams go to bloody die. It's the lowest bar you can set for yourself, and you deserve so much more than that. But here's the kicker, it doesn't happen all at once. It's not some giant, dramatic choice. It's the little compromises you make every damn day. One casual yes here, one I'll deal with this later there. And suddenly, you're living someone else's idea of a life, and you're sitting there trying to convince yourself that this is what you wanted all along. Newsflash, it's not. Here's where it gets exciting. You can stop this shit anytime you want. You don't need to burn your life to the ground unless you're into that. What you need is to wake the hell up. Take a good hard look at your job, your relationships, your daily routines, and ask yourself, does this actually feel like mine? And if the answer is no, good. That is your bloody green light to start making some fucking changes. And listen here, don't get it twisted. Settling is not failure. It's just the moment you stop demanding better for yourself. But now's the time to stop settling for good enough and start living for great. Because let's be honest, no one is coming to fix this shit for you. You're the one who has to make the call. You're the one who has to decide that fine isn't cutting it anymore. So, here's the deal. This is your wake-up call. Stop fucking settling for a life that doesn't excite you. You don't need anyone's permission to go after what you really want. This is your life. Start living like it's yours. So, you think a fresh start is the answer? Let me guess. You've thought, if I just move to a new city, get a new job, find a new crowd, everything will magically fall into place. Sound familiar? Don't worry. We've all been there. I've been there. I was such a dumbass. But let me hit you with a little truth bomb. You can't outrun yourself. No amount of new scenery, new vibes, or fresh starts will fix what you're avoiding inside. Here's the thing about a clean slate. It's not actually clean. If you're bringing the same mindset and baggage with you, you move, you change your environment, but guess what? You're still there. Your patterns, your doubts, your good enough mentality, they unpack their bags the second you do. And then what? You're in a new city, but the same cycle plays out because you never dealt with the real issue. The truth is, you don't need a relocation. You need a revelation. You need to stop settling for a life that doesn't feel like yours and start figuring out why you settled in the first place. The answer isn't out there, it's in here. It's about recognizing that you've been living by someone else's rules, chasing someone else's idea of happiness, and expecting a zip code to fix that. Spoiler alert, it won't. Here's the good news. You don't need to pack up and go anywhere to start over. What you need is to rewrite your own script. Stop playing the roles society handed you and start asking yourself what you really want. It doesn't take fireworks or plane tickets. It takes honesty, grit, and a decision to stop pretending you're fine when you're not. Let me put it this way. It's not about where you are, it's about who you are. Change starts when you stop running and start choosing. Choosing the life you want, one small intentional move at a time. So yeah, you could book that one-way ticket, but maybe, just maybe, the real journey starts without ever leaving home. Let's talk rebellion, not the dramatic burn it all down kind. I'm talking about the small, quiet rebellions that change everything. You know what I mean? Those moments when you stop nodding along to things you don't agree with, or laughing at jokes that aren't funny, just to keep the peace. Those moments when you finally say, actually no, and it feels like breathing for the first time in years. Here's the deal. Change doesn't always come with fireworks and grand gestures. Most of the time, it sneaks in quietly. It's in the split second when you decide to stop pretending that fine is good enough. It's when you skip the plans you never wanted to make, set a boundary, or finally stop over-apologising for wanting something different. These tiny, almost invisible acts of defiance, they're the real game changers. And let's be real, they're not going to make headlines. You're not storming out of the office or dramatically cutting people off. What you're doing is reclaiming your power, piece by piece. You're rewriting the script of your life, scene by scene, with no permission slip required. That's where the magic happens. Not in some sweeping transformation, but in the small, deliberate choices that say, I'm done playing by someone else's rules. Here's why it works. When you start standing up for what you really want, even in the tiniest ways, it creates a ripple effect. One small rebellion leads to another. Suddenly, you're not the person going through the motions anymore. You're the one living a life that feels like yours. And trust me, that's where freedom starts. So here's your challenge. Pick one thing. Just one. Maybe it's declining that coffee date you didn't want to go to, or skipping the group chat drama. Say no, set a boundary, or break one small rule that's been holding you back. It might seem insignificant, but I promise it's not. Because the second you stop living by someone else's expectations is the second you start living for real. And that's the kind of rebellion worth celebrating. All right, let's cut to the chase. You don't need anyone's permission to live your life. Seriously, who told you that you had to wait for some mystical green light to go after what you really want? Spoiler alert, no one's coming. There's no committee, no secret society handing out approval slips for your dreams. The only person qualified to give you the go-ahead is you. Think about it. How many times have you put your life on hold because you were waiting? Waiting for validation, for the right time, or for someone to say, yes, that's allowed? Well, here's the truth. The only person who needs to say yes is you. You want to change careers? Do it. Move to a coastal town and write that novel you've been dreaming about? Go for it. Spend a year just figuring things out? Absolutely. You don't need to justify it to anyone. Here's why this matters. Waiting for permission is just fear in disguise. It's the excuse that keeps you stuck, playing it safe and living on someone else's terms. But guess what? You're not here to follow someone else's script. Life isn't a straight line, and it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all blueprint. It's messy, unpredictable, and yours to shape. So why are you still asking for permission to live it? Let me make this clear. The people who love you, the ones who matter, they'll support you when you start making choices that feel right for you, and the ones who don't, well, that's their problem, not yours. You're not here to fit into their version of what life should look like. You're here to write your own story. So stop waiting. Whatever it is, big or small, take the first step. You don't need to explain yourself, and you definitely don't need approval. The life you want is already waiting for you. All you have to do is say yes to yourself. Who said life has to be a straight line? Seriously, who decided the rules? School? Job? Marriage? Kids? Retirement? Sound familiar? Society's been peddling this same tired script forever, like it's the only way to live. Spoiler alert, it's not. Life isn't some neatly organised checklist and trying to follow that path when it doesn't feel right. That's like chasing someone else's dream and wondering why it doesn't fit. Here's the real truth. Life is full of twists, turns, and yes, a few dead ends. And you know what? That's not failure, it's the process. Maybe you've been in the same job for years, and it feels like it's sucking the soul out of you. Maybe you're in a relationship that feels more like an obligation. Or maybe you've just been going through the motions because you're afraid of what happens if you step off the so-called right path. Newsflash, it's your path. You're allowed to change it anytime you want. The world will tell you that if you're not ticking boxes by a certain age, you're falling behind. But behind what? Behind who? There is no universal timeline, no finish line where someone hands you a trophy for most predictable life. The only timeline that matters is yours. And guess what? It's okay if it's messy, it's okay if it's not linear. Some of the best stories have plot twists, and yours can too. So take a look at your life. Are you where you want to be? Or are you just following a plan you didn't even create? If it doesn't feel right, you don't have to stay on that path. You can pivot, detour, or even turn back if you want. Life isn't about getting to some imaginary destination. It's about creating a path that feels like yours every step of the way. So forget the invisible rules, the ticking clock, and the pressure to conform. Start walking your own path, even if it's unpaved, even if it's unclear. Because when it feels like your life, not the one society sold you, that's when you know you're doing it right. Let's talk about success. Not the Instagram version, not the glossy, airbrushed highlight reel nonsense. I'm talking about real success, the kind that's personal, messy, and constantly shifting. Here's the thing. Society loves to sell us this idea that success is some big, final moment. Land the dream job, hit the six-figure salary, buy the house, live happily ever after. Sounds great, right? Except it's complete BS. The truth? Success isn't a destination, it's a moving target. One day it's nailing that presentation at work. The next, it's just making it through Monday without losing your mind. It's not one giant leap, it's 1,000 little steps. It's the mornings where you get out of bed even when you don't want to. It's the evenings where you laugh so hard you forget about everything else. Success isn't some grand one-time achievement. It's the small wins that keep you going. Let me ask you this. How often do you celebrate those small wins? You know, the stuff that doesn't get likes or applause. Maybe you didn't finish the marathon, but you ran your first mile. Maybe you didn't write the whole book, but you knocked out a solid paragraph. That counts. Those moments matter. But we're so busy chasing some perfect, picture-worthy version of success that we forget the journey is the real thing. And here's the kicker. Your definition of success? It's allowed to change. One year it's climbing the corporate ladder, the next it's figuring out how to have dinner without burning it. Success isn't about living up to some universal standard. It's about living a life that feels right for you today. So stop chasing someone else's idea of success. Start noticing your small wins because they're the real MVPs. That's where the magic is. In the everyday, the messy, the real. Success isn't about trophies or applause. It's about those quiet moments where you realize you're moving forward, even if no one else notices. And trust me, that's more than enough. All right, let's talk about boundaries. The no word. You know, that little word that can change everything? But for some reason, we've been trained to avoid it like it's the plague. We're conditioned to say yes to everything and everyone, even when it's not what we want. Why? Because we're afraid of what people might think. We're scared of disappointing others, afraid they won't like us if we say no. Newsflash, you're not here to be everyone's doormat. You don't owe anyone your time, your energy, or your peace just because they ask for it. And guess what? Saying no is not only liberating, it's downright necessary. You're allowed to choose what's best for you, and it doesn't require an explanation. No is a complete sentence. My friend, don't over-explain. Don't apologize for it. And before you go, but I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, hear me out. If they can't handle your boundaries, that's not on you, it's on them. The real ones, the people who actually matter, they'll respect your no. And if someone gets upset, good. That means you're finally putting yourself first. They'll either respect it or they won't, but that's not your problem. You don't need to be available for everyone all the time. You don't need to answer every call, every message, every request. Protect your energy. Saying no is powerful. It means you're taking control of your life and your time. And honestly, it's the most self-loving thing you can do. So stop saying yes to things that drain you. Stop filling up your schedule with other people's priorities while your own dreams sit on the back burner. You have a right to say no without feeling guilty about it. It's not about being rude, it's about being real. It's about respecting your own time and energy as much as you respect everyone else's. So practice it. Say it out loud. Get comfortable with it. When you say no, you're creating space for all the yeses that actually matter. The ones that will take you where you want to go, not where someone else thinks you should be. Boundaries are the ultimate form of self-care. And trust me, you're going to feel lighter the second you start enforcing them. Let's get something straight. Normal is boring. Actually, scratch that. Normal doesn't even exist. It's just some imaginary standard society cooked up to keep us all in line. Be interesting, but not too interesting. Be unique, but don't stand out. Stay in the box, follow the script, and for the love of everything, don't let anyone see how weird you really are. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's exhausting. Here's the thing. The quirks, the oddities, the stuff you've been hiding because you think it makes you too different, that's the good stuff. That's the part of you the right people are going to love. But if you keep editing yourself, shrinking, smoothing out your edges, pretending to be someone you're not, you're never going to find those people. You'll just end up surrounded by folks who like the watered down fake version of you. And honestly, who has time for that? Think about it. The most interesting, inspiring people in history didn't blend in. They weren't trying to be normal. And they were unapologetically themselves, quirks and all. You don't make waves by sticking to the script. You make waves by being the person who's not afraid to admit they know all the lyrics to a Spice Girls song, or that they own a wardrobe for their dog. Whatever your thing is, lean into it. That's where the magic is. And here's the truth. The people who make you feel like you need to tone it down, those aren't your people. The right people, they'll love you for the things you've been trying to hide. They'll laugh with you, not at you when you snort in public. They'll get excited about the stuff you're passionate about, no matter how niche or weird it might seem. Why? Because that's what makes you, you. So stop editing. Stop apologizing. Stop trying to fit into some boring version of normal that doesn't even exist. The second you embrace who you really are, unapologetically, life gets bigger, better, and way more fun. And trust me, the right people will show up when you show up as yourself. Because let's be honest, nobody remembers the person who blended in. They remember the one who stood out. Let's get real for a second. You've scrolled through social media and seen it. That perfect life wrapped up in a shiny little bow. The dream job, the picture-perfect relationship. The vacations that look like they were sponsored by a luxury travel company. And just like that, you start wondering, where did I go wrong? But here's the truth no one tells you. You're comparing someone else's highlight reel to your behind the scenes. Think about it. Those perfect Instagram shots, they're curated, polished, filtered within an inch of their lives. You're not seeing the 50 failed attempts, the chaos right outside the frame, or the cereal they ate for dinner because they were too tired to cook. Meanwhile, you're sitting there, measuring your real messy, unfiltered life against their edited movie trailer version. It's not a fair fight, and spoiler alert, it's one you'll never win. But here's the game changer. Stop looking at their highlight reel and start looking at your life. Not the polished moments, but the real ones. The coffee that actually tasted amazing this morning. The conversation that made you laugh so hard you forgot what you were worried about. The way your dog loses its mind. Every time you walk through the door. Those little moments, that's where life is happening. And you know what else? The second you stop chasing someone else's idea of perfection is the second you start noticing how good you've already got it. Perfection is an illusion, and trying to measure up to it will leave you exhausted. Life isn't about looking like you've got it all together. It's about the moments that make it feel like yours. Messy, unfiltered, real. So the next time you catch yourself scrolling and comparing, put the phone down, look around. Your life doesn't need filters to be beautiful. It's already enough. just as it is, just as you are. Stop measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel and start showing up for the behind-the-scenes moments that make your life yours. That's where the real magic is. Let's talk about the messy days. The ones where nothing goes right, where you're knee-deep in chaos and wondering how life got so complicated. You know, the kind of days where your big accomplishment is just getting through without completely losing it. Here's the thing. Those days, they matter. In fact, they might matter more than the perfect ones. Everyone loves to talk about the highlight moments, the big wins, the flawless presentations, the days where everything clicks. But those aren't the days that define you. The real story, it's in the days where you're winging it, stumbling through, and somehow still managing to hold it together. The meltdown in the grocery store aisle, the commute home, where you're crying and laughing at the same time because honestly, life is just that ridiculous. That's where the magic is. Not in the perfection, but in the mess. Let me tell you something no one else will. The bad days count. They're not failures. They're proof that you're human. They're the chapters in your story that make the good days even sweeter. Think about it. Do you remember the days where everything went perfectly? Probably not. But you remember the days where it all fell apart and you still got up the next morning. That's where the real strength comes from. So stop beating yourself up for not having it all together all the time. No one does. And anyone who says they do, they're lying. The bad days don't mean you're off track. They mean you're living. Life isn't supposed to be polished and perfect. It's supposed to be real. And real life? It's messy, chaotic, and unpredictable. Here's the takeaway. You don't need to turn every bad day into some grand life lesson. Some days just surviving is the win, and that's okay. Give yourself credit for making it through, for showing up, for trying. Because those messy, unglamorous, imperfect days, they're part of the deal. And honestly, they're the ones that make you stronger. So here's to the mess. It's proof that you're living a real, beautiful, imperfect life. And that's more than enough. Let's talk about a trap we've all fallen into, waiting to be enough. You know what I mean? The constant chase. Once I get the promotion, I'll be enough. Once I lose the weight, I'll be happy. Once I fix my life, then I'll deserve what I want. Sound familiar? It's like you're always one milestone away from finally feeling worthy. But here's the truth. No one's telling you you're already enough. Right now, as you are, think about it. Who told you that you need to hustle harder, be better, do more, just to earn your place in the world? Society loves to sell us this idea that we're all a work in progress. But what if that's the biggest lie of all? What if you've been enough all along, and the only person who needed convincing was you? Here's the thing. The life you want isn't waiting for some magical version of you to show up. You don't have to check all the boxes, hit all the goals, or reach some mythical finish line to be worthy of happiness, love, or success. That version of you, the one with messy hair, a laundry list of things to do, and maybe a half-eaten pint of ice cream in the freezer, that person is already killing it. You're allowed to want more for yourself. Growth is great, but stop letting it come with conditions. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, including yourself. The life you want doesn't start when you've earned it. It starts when you decide you're worthy of it. Right here. Right now. No finish lines, no perfect versions of you required. So here's your wake-up call. Stop waiting. You don't need to hustle for your worthiness. You don't need to earn your own approval. You just need to believe that the person staring back at you in the mirror deserves the best life possible. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Because trust me, you've been enough all along. The only thing left to do is start living like it. Let's face it, no matter what you do, someone's going to have an opinion about it. And here's the kicker. It's usually not even about you. It's about them. Yet we spend so much time editing ourselves, performing and bending over backward to please everyone else. Why? Because we're chasing approval that doesn't actually matter. So let me ask you, how's that working out for you? Here's the truth. You're never going to make everyone happy. Ever. There will always be someone who thinks you're doing it wrong, living too loud, dreaming too big, or not fitting into their neat little box. But guess what? That's not your problem. Their opinions say more about them than they do about you. And the second you realize that, total freedom, think about it. Has obsessing over what people think ever made your life better? Has it ever made your choices easier or brought you any kind of peace? Of course not. All it does is drain your energy and keep you stuck, living a life that isn't even yours. So why keep giving their opinion so much power? Here's what happens when you stop caring. You get your life back. You make choices based on what feels right for you, not what looks good on paper or fits into someone else's expectations. You stop performing and start living. And you know what? The people who truly matter will respect you for it. The ones who don't, they're not your people. And that's okay. So stop wasting your time trying to impress the critics in the cheap seats. Start living a life that feels true to you. Be bold. Be unapologetic. Because at the end of the day, you're the one living your life, not them. And trust me, everyone's ever been remembered for being the person who played it safe to keep everyone happy. You're here to live boldly, not blend in. So let them talk and you just keep moving forward. Paul, alright, let's cut the bullshit, the life you're living right now. It doesn't have to stay this way. If it doesn't feel like yours, if it feels like you're stuck in someone else's smegging story, you can change it. And no, you don't need some dramatic screw-it-all gesture. Sometimes, all it takes is one brutally honest moment with yourself to start flipping the script. Let's get real for a second. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to scream hell no? How many times have you smiled, nodded, and gone along with the plans, the job, the relationship, just because it felt easier than dealing with the fallout? Let me tell you something, those little compromises, they stack up. And before you know it, you're knee-deep in a life that doesn't even feel like your own. But here's the fucking beauty of it. You don't have to stay there. You can take it all back. You don't need permission, and you sure as hell don't need a perfect plan. Change doesn't start with a big dramatic mic drop. It starts with small intentional moments, like saying, you know what? Fuck this. I deserve better, motherfucker. It's when you stop pretending that fine is good enough. Because let's be honest, fine is just a polite way of saying, I've settled. And you're not here to settle. You're here to fucking thrive. Picture this. You stop playing along with other people's expectations. You stop saying yes to the plans you hate and laughing at jokes that aren't even funny. You stop making moves, quiet, badass moves, to reclaim your life. It's not about burning bridges or flipping bloody tables, unless you want to. It's about building something better, piece by piece, choice by choice. This is your story and you're in charge. If you're not happy with the way it's playing out, then change it. Rip up the smegging script if you have to. Because this is your life, your one shot to make it what you want. No more compromises, no more playing it safe. This is your fucking moment, and it's time to grab it. So what the hell are you waiting for? Let's go.